Welcome to one of the most powerful stories in the Bible, the story of Abraham, a man called to leave everything behind and trust in an incredible promise from God. This is the story of a covenant, a sacred promise that would change the course of history. Let's dive in. Our story begins with a man named Abram, living a quiet life in Haran. But God had other plans for him, plans that would take him on a journey of faith that would change the world. One night, God spoke to Abram and told him, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. All the people on earth will be blessed through you." Imagine the weight of this moment. Abram had no children, and he was well past the age most people think about starting a family. Yet, he was asked to trust in a promise that seemed impossible. Abram obeyed, setting out with his wife, Sarai, and his nephew, Lot. Together, they traveled to a land called Canaan, guided by a promise that God would make him the father of a great nation. Years went by, and Abram still had no children. His faith was being tested. At one point, Abram questioned God, asking, "How can I become a great nation if I don't even have a son? Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be." In that moment, Abram believed. God counted his faith as righteousness. And then, God did something extraordinary. He made a formal covenant with Abram. In ancient times, a covenant was a binding agreement, often sealed with a symbolic act. Abram prepared a sacrifice, and in a vision, he saw a blazing torch pass between the pieces of the offering, symbolizing God's commitment to his promise. God reaffirmed his promise, giving Abram a new name, Abraham, and changing Sarai's name to Sarah. It was a reminder that they were destined to be the parents of nations. God told him, "I will bless Sarah, and I will give you a son by her." When Abraham heard this, he laughed. He was 100 years old, and Sarah was 90. But God insisted, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" And true to his word, Sarah gave birth to a son named Isaac, whose name means laughter. In their old age, Abraham and Sarah saw the promise fulfilled. Through Isaac, God's promise of a great nation would begin. But the journey of faith wasn't over. God tested Abraham once more, asking him to do the unthinkable, to offer Isaac, his beloved son, as a sacrifice. Imagine the heartbreak Abraham felt. But he obeyed, believing that somehow God could still fulfill his promise. Just as he was about to go through with it, God stopped him. "Do not lay a hand on the boy. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." In that moment, God provided a ram as a substitute, and Abraham's faith was rewarded. He had passed the ultimate test, showing that he trusted God completely. Now, Abraham's journey wasn't perfect, but his faith became a foundation for generations to come. The covenant God made with Abraham paved the way for the nation of Israel and, ultimately, for the promise of a Savior. This covenant, rooted in faith and trust, would eventually lead to Jesus Christ, through whom all nations would be blessed, fulfilling God's promise. So, what can we take from Abraham's story? That faith doesn't mean having all the answers. It means trusting in God's promises even when they seem impossible. Abraham's covenant reminds us that God's plans are bigger than we can imagine, and that, when we walk by faith, those plans unfold in ways we never thought possible. God's ways are higher than our ways, and so is His thoughts. Will you trust God today? Subscribe to Modern Miracle to receive more uplifting videos and lessons.